Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 78 on the Story Thinker about Midnight Poppyland. And today we have Elizabeth and Kat and Jen, and I will let these ladies introduce themselves and tell you about the cool stuff that they do. And here we go.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm also known as Begonia Rex around Instagram and AO3. I've been on the podcast before, but for those of you who haven't heard me before, I'm writing or rewriting right now a very long MPL fanfic called A Lily for Tora, which also has some very nice art in it by Kat.
Yeah, I guess I'll use that as my segue. Okay, yeah, hi, I'm Kat, or Cat's Tiny on Instagram, and hair in my face. What I do is fan art, mostly appropriate, some of the time not, and yeah, that's what I do. Slightly inappropriate pictures. That's my purpose. And I've never been on here before. I'm very excited.
I'm Jen. I think this is my third time doing the podcast. I live in Central Florida, and I am just a fan of all your guys' artwork as well as your fanfics and Lily's wonderful comic.
Yep, and I'm happy that you guys are all here, so thank you so much. All right, so let's take it away. This episode is going to be cool. So we start off with a little bit of the recap from last time, where Tora finally admits that he is falling in love with her. Amazing admission, shocked us all. Well, didn't shock us, but like we were so excited to hear it. And now we start off with, we thought that they were going to have to rush back to Nehru. We were like, what's happening to you? This is terrible. He's in danger. We were all ready for like this horrible, I don't know about you, I was thinking that this next like series of episodes would be mafia and shootouts and hiding and action, whatever. Totally wrong. We get a and then it's like, saying, bro, it's you. Did you receive the motion sensor alarm? And then there's you looking cute at the button. And he's like, figured I'd test the motion sensor system to make sure it's working properly. My hands were full and I didn't have my earphones on, so I couldn't pick up your calls. Like, no, you couldn't like notify him beforehand.
I do have to say, Lily Dusk is like such a troll in a good way,
right?
Because we're all like, oh, it's like, it's so scary and intense. It's gonna be this like super intense like drive back to Naren, and we're all like, and it's just like he was like
all the swerves.
And she like deliberately makes his face all cutesy because like to contrast with like we thought that was gonna be dangerous. No, it's just you being a cutie pie. Oh my gosh.
I appreciate that you called him cute as a button, because he actually looks like a button this time around. Just like her cartoony like chibi game in this episode is strong. Oh my god.
Oh, it was adorable. I laughed so much during this episode. It was great. Laughed out loud, literally. It's these days we have to say literally after laugh out loud because like it's not literal anymore. So.
No, now you just do like kind of heavy like nose breathing if you're actually doing like a LOL, and then you're like, oh, that's a LOL moment right there. Just.
But I actually laughed out loud a lot here. So you know, we see a video chat. He was pointing up at the balcony, looking cute again, and Tora's like, dot. Anyway, I'm heading over to Chevy's after this shift is over. You'll be back at Naren by then, right? He's like, and Tora's 3 work shifts in a row. Don't you need a rest? Told you I need to come to me if you need money, which again is very nice. I totally feel for you because there was a time in my life where I worked insane hours and it was terrible, and I feel bad for you. So, and he's like, gee, think, bro, since when were you so paternal? But of course, right, Tora is showing the nice side of him, telling him he can come to him if he needs money, which is great. Hey, thank you, punk. Okay, who are you? What did you do to my big bro? Do you think Tora is nicer because Poppy is around? And he's happier?
well, she was the one who originally was like, he's like, what do you want me to say? And she's like, thank you. Say thank you.
Right? He's learning to like express some basic emotions.
But I like how he turns it on where she was all sweet and like, oh, you could say thank you. You know, smile, and he's just like, say thank you, punk.
And then he's like, since you're here, it might be a bit of a stretch because of lack of info, but look up this person for me as well. And I was so happy to see this come around because, anyway, let's do this. So he says, I guess you could keep the underground. We're going back to the conversation with Quincy. and he's talking about Poppy and, you know, like it being dangerous for her to be around. And Quincy tells Tora, I guess you could keep it underground or she could pose as a disposable piece, which is like very sad to hear like that. Obviously, like the mafia people have like these disposable pieces, like that's what their like women are. Okay. So I don't know if she'd be happy about that. And those come with their own risks. And then Tora, of course, is like, well, I thought this is rich. I thought you were trying to set us up. And yeah, go ahead, Jen, you're like, you want to say something?
No, I'm just like kind of shocked that Quincy is as cavalier about all this as he is, because I really thought that he was into like the love matchmaking and not just like a hookup for Tora. So, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I was just kind of shocked. So,
Well, and then he's like, I don't even know why people like my books so much. And I'm like, dude, why do you write erotica then?
Maybe just to upset his dad. Maybe that's like the purpose. Just to learn men.
Just to stick it to him.
I don't know. I actually think that Quincy's right. He says, I suck at this romance crap. I think that Quincy never had a model for romance in his personal life. I don't think his parents, whoever his mom is, I doubt she's around. I don't think Vincent and her had a loving relationship. And I think that maybe Quincy writing all this romance novel was like a way of him trying to get what he never got. And I think he's right. He probably doesn't know how to have like a real relationship and how to have real love. Poor dude. But yeah, you're right. When he says like, I was only gunning for a friends with benefits thing. Yeah, I also did things. I thought he wanted like real love. Maybe that's the only thing he is used to, friends with benefits, or like his dad's version of friends with, you know, women side pieces with benefits or whatever. Eye candy, arm candy, whatever.
no, there's probably some truth to that.
Yeah. Well, and he probably didn't even think like Tora would go as far as he has either.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think we talked about this last time. I think that he is very optimistic, Quincy. And sometimes maybe he's like tripping over his own feet because he's like, yeah, you should do this, you should do this. But then when he actually is doing it, when Tora is actually falling in love, he's like, wait, this is really happening? Like, it's not just my fantasy that I'm pushing on you because I'm like a big romance and optimist. So I think now that like the reality is hitting him in the face, he's like, wait, it's dangerous, and like take it slow or be careful. Because I guess at the end of the day, he actually isn't completely unrealistic and does have some sense of like reality. So, and he continues, I mean, the chemistry you two have is off the freaking charts. At least this much I can tell. And you're like, oh, you can't even keep your hands off each other long enough to scratch your own backsides or something. Says who? Tora is like totally embarrassed and blushing. Oh, yeah, he has been caught. Says anyone with a pair of eyes. Yep.
Which you wonder, like at the party, how much the thuglets all picked up probably on that Tora likes Poppy.
Right. Yeah, staring at her all night.
Yeah, and also actually even before this episode, he was super big on like all those little touches and stuff, like putting her shoe back on at the party and lifting her up. And actually, what am I talking about? Not little touches. He's like he's swinging her around all the time. Now that I think about it, he's super into, you know, like physical touch and like skinship and stuff. He's been doing that from the get-go. He really shouldn't be that shocked that people are picking up on it.
Right. Yeah, I was when we were doing the party episodes back before the break, I really was surprised that he was so open with it. Like it was in public, there were tons of people around. So yeah, I think that he can't really help himself with her. It's against his will and he just is drawn to her. And he's like, hey, look, I'm not asking you to change your mind or give up on her, so just chill. I'll always support whatever choice you make and miss Editor too. And that's the Quincy we, know and love, the supportive friend. But I, honest to God, would never have set you up if I knew how much you'd be into her. I thought it was just a lust thing, which is interesting. Like, do you think he never would have set him up because he was worried for the consequences?
I don't know. It's very odd. Like this feels weird for me because I definitely thought that Quincy was like sincere about this from the beginning. So I'm honestly just as thrown as Tora is right now when he's like, what are you talking about? Like, wasn't this your idea? Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's still like, I don't I don't know. I don't know if I like this side to him because it kind of feels a little like I don't know, not two-faced, that's too mean, but
Kind
like
of flippant.
a little bit, yeah, and just like it's kind of a bummer. I'm like a huge like Quincy fan, and I just always assumed that he was like, you know, rah main couple. And now that he's like getting kind of lukewarm on me, I'm just like, oh geez, okay. Like,
I wonder. Sorry, Jen. What were you saying?
No, go ahead.
I wonder if there's a side to Quincy that, like maybe involuntarily, is a little jealous that his friend is getting true love and he's not, and maybe that's why he's like unconsciously a little bit trying to sabotage. Like, the conscious part of him is supportive, like right, you guys say at the end, I'll support you, because that's like who he wants to be. But maybe there's a part of him that is a little jealous, and like that's coming out without even knowing, which I think is very human.
maybe he might be projecting a little bit because that's what like Tora and Poppy are starting to get might be what he envisioned for himself with like Cordy or like one of his other like previous partners or something. And like maybe now he's just like, or it could be that, you know, because of his upbringing and stuff, he doesn't see emotional investment as a good thing, like definitely as like a bad thing, you know, judging by the example that his dad's been setting for him. And so maybe he does think that he's trying to protect Tora from a potentially bad thing on an emotional level, you know, like because he didn't have a good experience with it.
I'm wondering if it's just that he is just so shocked that Tora is actually interested and wants a relationship with somebody versus like never having that before. So maybe he just never thought it would go that far.
Right. That's what he says, right? You know, I wonder because it's been a subject of speculation since the beginning, but you know how like the original byline of the comic was the love triangle, right? And Lily was like, oh, that's not a big deal, don't worry. But in other places, she has referred to it more recently, and I think it's Patreon, so I'm not gonna talk about it, but she has kind of referred to it in a way that made me wonder, maybe it's gonna show up. So maybe this is like, yeah.
I hope not. It's like, I mean, like I'm all for like a plot twist and everything, but like I'm so attached to Quincy just being himself and stuff, and I don't want any reason to dislike him, and I know that would happen if he like kind of turns the tables and starts to become, but I mean, then again, is he like the kind of person like who would come between, you know, like someone he really cares about and like their partner, the person that they like it doesn't really seem to fit with him, you know, personality wise. But then again, what do I know? Because apparently I thought he was sincere about this, and it's not. But yeah, just
It'll be for great drama. I mean, it's like a whole like, oh, my brother betraying me. There could be that whole thing. I mean, maybe we wouldn't like it, but it would be very emotional.
Yeah. Oh boy, love triangles.
Friends to enemies. I don't know. Okay, I don't know. Maybe I'm making it more dramatic and dark than it'll be, but
maybe. I mean, like when you say it like that, though, I'm not entirely opposed to it. It's just like, I mean, because it's like one of those things where you would love to hate it. Like, if does that make any sense at all?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Quincy, and right now he's okay. So right now he's a big fluff ball, right? But honestly, I think Quincy is not fulfilling his potential, right? He's kind of avoiding the responsibilities of life because he doesn't want to get dragged into the whole mafia affair. But if he would, you know, either compete with Tora for Poppy or in some other way, like it would at least make him be less passive in his life, because right now I think he's passive in many ways because he doesn't have the energy to deal with his life. And it would make him a little more assertive and mature and like more of a full person if he went after what he wanted. I mean, he goes after what he wants with his romance novel, right? But he's obviously very avoidant of the main issue in his life. And he needs to develop. I do think he needs to develop that.
He's definitely going after Cordy though. Like, I mean, because he's like obsessed with her. And
I don't know, because he's not making her commit to him. He's just like begging her to like spend time with him, but he's not saying, hey, Cordy, what am I to you? Like, do you care about me? Do you want to be with me? Like, I don't know. I think he's too afraid.
no, I mean, we don't know if they've had that conversation yet, but I mean, he asked her permission before like hanging out with like other people on like a physical level, you know, and yeah. like before, I think, like, didn't he mention something like when he was in the car on the way home with like another guy, and he was like, I have to call, like, and make
Oh,
sure
I
this is.
think he was trying to call Benjamin with that.
Oh,
Mhm.
was he?
Mhm.
Oh God. Okay.
But
Yeah.
it was when he was carrying Tora up to his apartment,
Right.
and Tora's like, F you. And he's like, well, you'll have to ask
Cordy.
Cordy's permission
Yes,
first.
thank you. Yes, okay,
'Cause
there
she
it
doesn't
is.
like to share.
I was like, I know I'm not making this up in my head. Like,
Yeah, I know.
it's a
But
thing. And
yeah, I think he was just joking because he then goes right ahead and sleeps with either the club owner. I don't think they have a serious relationship, and I don't think she expects him to be just with her. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he is ready to have like an exclusive relationship either.
Well, and it could be that because he's like the heir of two mafia clans, like he might have to have like a political marriage. Because like
Yeah.
it seems like Vincent is very concerned about like bloodlines and like blood purity. Like he mentions that when he's talking to Tora, and like I could totally see like Quincy not committing to anybody because he can't.
yeah.
And instead of like dwelling on it, it seems like he's just really just kind of flippant about like dating people or hooking up with people, and maybe that's just sort of a coping mechanism too.
Yeah.
That's very possible.
Mhm. Yeah, and my wish for Quincy is like, I know personally for me, I had this whole thing where I had to go rebel against my parents to get my life basically. And, I'm not going to say it wasn't easy because like, in a way, that's the only path I could have chosen, but it always irks me when people don't do that. When people listen to their parents and let them choose their life for them. And I'm like, just do it, do whatever you need to do, rebel, get out of it. And I'm waiting for Quincy to do that because I feel like he's just letting people make his decisions for him. So I'm hoping that Quincy, like that's his growth in this comic, that he'll step up to the plate and do something, So
Well, and
I
it
think he
seems
will.
like with their conversation as we keep going, like
Right,
there
yes.
seems like there's something brewing.
yes,
Absolutely.
Let's get to that. So he tells him, I thought it was just a lust thing, and Tora like puts his hand over his eyes and sighs, and Quincy says, I mean, even Cordy said so when I met her after we left Gudrun's. And then Tora like kind of like perks up and asks him, and who's she working for again? At which point Quincy gets thrown off and he's like, Cordelia, some volume and affiliated clan. Why? And he's like, Cordelia's and you get clan neutral, bro. He or she doesn't bring clan business into her personal life like me. And I've known her almost as long as you, since we were teens, which we didn't know before. Okay. You won't interfere with my personal affairs or act on behalf of my old man, at least not until D-Day, right? Our agreement still stands, right? Okay, people. Bum, bum, bum. What does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
What's D-Day? What is the agreement?
Maybe that's part of Tora stepping back from clan affairs for a while.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, like people are talking about also like a overthrow, to like put someone else in power. I mean, a lot of people online are saying Tora, but personally I don't think so because he doesn't strike me as someone who's particularly power hungry. He's more like damn it, I just want my own life, leave me alone. But Quincy on the other hand, like maybe like it's time for him to take his place as sort of like the heir, but change the culture a little bit. I don't know, but then again, like looking at this particular speech bubble anyway, acting on behalf of my old man. So maybe this has something to do with like the clan as a whole, and it's not about overthrowing a rebellion of any kind, but it's about the clan moving as a group to make some sort of drastic change, that Vincent actually wants. And maybe that is a potentially dangerous change that could endanger a lot of people. I don't know, but that's just a theory.
I've always thought it's odd that like Tora is apparently like super highly skilled and specialized, and kind of it almost seems like outside the clan hierarchy, because like I forget which episode it was, way back at like Club Miracle, like Shingma was talking to Claude and was like, Tora's the same rank as me, but that's only because he's too lazy to climb the ranks. And he says something to Claude that's like blurred out, so we still don't know what that's about or like what Tora's role is. But it was enough for like Claude to kind of freak out. And so I think like, why would Tora be only Quincy's bodyguard? Like Vincent even was like, will you do this like sniper job for me? And Tora was kind of like, like Vincent was like, oh right, you don't really do that anymore. So I'm really curious, like, what is this agreement for? Like, is it based on like something that happened 2 years ago? And that's why Tora kind of stopped being, as public as the Tiger of Aries Street.
I feel like it's more future, just because of what they're talking about. But I'm curious if it's like how both of them get out. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it does sound like they have some kind of truce. Like if one makes a move, the other one will support 100%. Even if it means like defecting or whatever. Like it sounds like they're kind of ride or die. So
yeah. You won't interfere with my personal affairs, though. That's like a strange. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like the agreement is that he won't interfere or act on behalf of his old man. So I think that maybe the old man, like you were saying, Elisabeth, probably wants him to his love life, right? To have a political marriage. And he's like, oh, Cordy is my personal life, right? Cordy is what I want, or like at least some kind of interaction with her is what he wants. And yes, I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
D-Day might be, I'm inclined to think, my first thought was D-Day is like, oh, they'll take over the clan, they'll get rid of Vincent, whatever. But it could also be that D-Day is Vincent's D-Day. We're like, okay, Quincy, now you step into the limelight and do the public marriage. Maybe Quincy's like, okay, I have my freedom until then, and then I have to step into this role.
Yeah.
Because he even mentions like, he doesn't bring clan affairs into his personal life, and neither does Cordy. So I'm curious if like, whatever Cordy's involved with, like they just sort of have this like agreement not to talk about it when they're together.
Yeah, it's very intriguing. I feel like it's a question. Like I don't feel like I know what's going on, which is good.
Going back to Cordy, I find it interesting that Tora doesn't know them when like they've known each other for so long.
it is true. They seem to like the degree at which they know each other for sure. Like I definitely didn't picture like Quincy and Cordy knowing each other from like their teens. Like I was like, well, what? Like that's definitely didn't strike me that way. That was a surprise for sure. So, and we've seen in like previous episodes that like Quincy and Tora basically grew up together, were kids together, younger even. And like, so how their paths never collided up until this point is very bizarre.
Yeah, that seems strange to me.
And that Tora didn't know who Cordy was. And like, it seemed like Cordy hadn't met Tora before either.
Yeah, it's strange. Very strange. Well, maybe we'll find out. There's a reason. Tora is finally trying to find out about her. He's like, tells Guyu, Cordelia, clan attorney for an unknown Baltimore affiliate, goes by he or she, 27, 28 years of age, got a big bro. And so Guyu's going to do some snooping. Don't let Quincy know about this or he'll effing kill me for snooping. Don't worry, big bro, you should stay with me. And he tells him, I've been sleeping on that asshole Cordy and whoever she's working for, which I don't know why, right? Maybe because he didn't want to interfere in Quincy's life, hurt Quincy, but I agree with him. I think that he was sleeping on Cordy. Like, he should have done research, right? I mean, like the heir of the Mafia clan, I'm sure people are out to get him, right? It's a dangerous position to be in. And so I'm glad that he's finally trying to find out who she is. And, I think it'll definitely be something. I don't know what, but it'll be something.
Yeah, you wonder if like Quincy just didn't talk about her for a really long time.
Yeah,
because like if he's like, I've known her since we were teens, and like Tora doesn't even know that. So I'm curious, like, how much time Tora and Quincy actually spent around each other when they were older. Because we like so far we've seen like them as kids when Vincent and Quincy are going to the beach, and Quincy's like, oh, I wanted Tora to come to the beach. And then we've seen one picture of the Aries Street Kings that has Tora and Quincy in it. But we actually haven't seen much. Oh, and then him like telling Poppy about pantsing him.
Yeah.
But like, we haven't seen too much yet, like how much they've actually like been involved, like how close they are to each other before now.
Mm-hmm. Maybe also Quincy didn't want to talk about Cordy because he didn't want the one personal thing in his life to be taken away.
Mm-hmm.
It is true. It's very possible that he is much more private than we previously thought. And maybe like this is kind of where Tora's not loyalty, that's not really fair, is like called into question, but like he is working for Vincent, you know, and he seems to be very much like loyal to him, like not because he wants to be, but he is. And Quincy, knowing that very well, may have purposefully hidden this, knowing that Tora would be obligated to say something, you know, to Vincent. And like, so he just chose to kind of avoid that entire collide.
Yeah, it seems super surprising too that Tora didn't do like his background on Cordy, considering, you know, he did it on Poppy's boss, and obviously he cares for Poppy, but it doesn't seem like that's as close to him as somebody who's dating Quincy. So I just find that interesting, unless he's just so distracted with Poppy right now.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I mean, and maybe it was a part of him that also was like, you know, knew he should be looking into Cordy, but didn't want to like offend Quincy or jump into his territory. I mean, you know, sometimes we don't all make the best decisions because of our emotions. But I'm very curious as to what will show up when he does, you know, his research. And then he continues, last question. Would you say that someone like a computer engineer could hack into the system, switch up the addresses, and not have that shit be discovered in years? And he's like kind of this side-eye glance while he's talking. And he was like, are you referring to Miss Poppy's Moonbright address that got switched for some random families? There's a chance it's a system glitch, but I don't know yet, big bro. It's a high-risk operation. I'll need time to figure it out. But assuming it isn't a glitch, a highly skilled computer engineer or whatever might be able to. They'd have to be some kind of genius to pull it off this flawlessly without getting caught. It's like, why do I always end up with that analytical strategy work? And click, I didn't even go to college for fuck's sake, whatever. Brain's officially dead, can't even ask Bobby for a pay raise. So who do you think switched it, guys?
I think Poppy's dad or Ned and June, because they all worked together at the same place.
What do we know anything about what he did, Poppy's dad?
In accounting? Is that what's assumed?
They said computer. He was a computer engineer.
Well, okay. I actually didn't know that. I forgot it. Either way.
Yeah,
I always pictured him doing something a lot more wholesome. Like, I don't know.
But like, it's been mentioned. The computer engineer thing just felt like weirdly specific for her to mention, because he's like, oh, who are they? And she was like, oh, that's Ned and June. Like, they worked with my dad at a computer engineering company. And I was just like, that's kind of an interesting detail. And I think it came up one more time. And I was just like, after seeing that her address was switched in the system, I was like,
I don't know if it has something to do with them directly, though. I mean, they don't exactly strike me as like the Bonnie and Clyde type, you know, like just like they're
like the fact that like her dad worked at this company that we don't know anything about it yet, but it's interesting now that Tora's kind of like, she's like, oh, my dad was a computer engineer, and then Tora's like, could a computer engineer do this?
Well, that would certainly make sense that he would want to keep Poppy safe. So her dad.
Yeah.
Or it could be like some behind the scenes work by her mom too. There's a lot we still don't know about her. And she definitely strikes me as the type to go above and beyond to ensure, you know, say, like, she just seems like a very severe woman from what we've seen. So I wouldn't really put it past her to kind of go to Poppy's dad and say, you need to do this to protect our family, or like protect whatever she's involved with, if she's involved with anything. And like, like it could be a behind the scenes thing from her too, like with her influence.
Right. I think you're totally right that we don't know anything about her mom. And I honestly think Lily is like red herring us. If I'm using the phrase correctly, I think we're led to assume that Poppy's mom is like, oh, she's just like, she left her family, she was into business. I think we're gonna have this big surprise with her mom, and she's not who we think she is.
Or it could end up being that weird, because like I've seen all the theories of like Poppy's mom is in the mafia, and like there are all these theories about like random characters in the background for a while, like that's Poppy's mom, this is Poppy's mom. Gil is actually Poppy's mom's brother.
Who's the best?
Which I love, like all the like theorizing for that, but I feel like we focused so much on her mom because like of that one picture where she looked kind of pissed off. But I think like Lily Dusk is so good at throwing people off, so I really wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being Poppy's dad who did a bunch of this stuff.
Oh, and he's the one with the mafia ties. Oh, he's the cutest little mafia king ever.
Because he looks like a cinnamon roll. Like he's the one who like taught her how to make rice balls and like climbed in trees with her.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's true.
But he was the one who was like concerned about
the white van.
That white van and them getting out of the tree, which seemed kind of interesting.
Feels like we're playing a game of Clue.
Yeah, I know, right?
All these characters. It was Poppy's dad in the bedroom with a computer.
Yep. Yeah, and it's too much for Tora. So let's do part 2 now, which is Jen.
Cat.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so here we have Tora finally off the phone. This is kind of embarrassing, but false alarm. So we find out that their beautiful moment was interrupted for no good reason. Don't we love that?
Stop
and Poppy looks just as thrown.
Yeah, Poppy is all of us.
Yeah. Like seriously, like her face is just kind of like, are you kidding? And false alarm. And then Tora's about to say, yeah, we don't need to go anywhere. Terribly interrupted. Big bro, help. And then we get our second interruption. All right, so we got a picture of doors, blood dripping down from someone's hand. This definitely got me worried when I saw that. I was just like, oh yes. God, what's happened? And here we go. Here's our first glimpse of Damien. Oh, good evening, Miss Poppy. And she's peeking out behind Tora's arm. Oh no, Damien. And then we get our first cartoony picture of Tora. Pinky, what in the world? I'll get the first aid kit. And Poppy's running away. Wait with him outside the house, Tora. So we have no idea what's wrong, but we're assuming it's something dumb based on Tora's expression. And there he is. There's Damien in all of his soaking leech attached glory.
With his Born to Be Wild shirt. That's what makes it even better.
Yeah, the contrast between like trying to be cool and looking not cool at all.
Or he looks like a little kid right here, like a toddler. All right, so here he is. Sorry I'm late, big bro. I went to take a piss and fell into a puddle or something. What kind of puddle are we talking about? Like, is this his roundabout way of saying that he went to the bathroom in Poppy's lake, or like tried to, like just, or pond? And all right, so he's covered in leeches.
I think this is showing that he's such a city boy. He doesn't know how to describe bodies of water. Like, I think he just doesn't know the word for pond or like.
Oh like, no, he can't be
there's
that
the bay by the city, and that's it.
And so then he asks, how do I get these things off without dying? Isn't that the $1 million question?
I will say, this episode, like once we get past the you conversation, which feels like, oh, there's all this really good information. And then it's just like, Damien's like, help me, I'm covered in leeches. And I've been in spots where like people get leeches, but like usually you get like 1, maybe 2 on you, and you'll have to have been in the water for a while. But he has like
1 for each extremity.
Yeah, at least. And I was like, dude, that was not a puddle.
Yep.
And then we've got the little frog on his
Top
shoulder.
it off with a frog.
Doesn't even notice the frog, I think.
I love the expression on the frog. Just like the what? Come at me. Just like
Yep. I feel so bad for Damien. If I don't think God, I've never had leeches on me, but I would probably not react very well.
Oh, they're so gross.
God. Oh God, I'd lose it. Just no. No, thank you. No, ma'am. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you have to do? Like, I know that the first time I came across the concept of leeches was watching Amazing Panda Adventures. You ever watched it? Like a 90s movie? Anyway, it was one of my favorite movies as a kid, but they like are in this lake and they get leeches on them. I remember I was so terrified because they're like, leeches, and they start yelling, and I was like, what are leeches? What are they? What's happening? And I'm like, so like I have fear in my heart just looking at this.
Yeah, apparently getting them off isn't as easy as it looks. Like in the movies or like in books, like you hear about people just yanking them off. No, you cannot do that. No.
I have to look up what to do just in case.
They have like teeth all around. Like kind of have to like work it off. Like,
well, it's like a tick. Because if you just go and pull a tick off, their head will stay under your skin.
Yeah.
I'm literally reading how to remove a leech now. Oh, this looks so gross. I can't even look at it. It's so freaking disgusting.
Can you believe there was like a point in time where people did this on purpose? Like leeching. Just like, okay, I'm gonna put one here. Like,
sorry. Disgust tolerance. Yuck.
Yeah, I might be a city girl, but I've spent a lot of time in northern Minnesota. So I'm like, we went to the headwaters of the Mississippi, and like you can actually walk across right there. But like there was one side where you didn't go because that was where all the leeches were, and we were just standing there watching like the tourists just kind of like walk through, and then oh, splash around in the water, ha ha ha, and we're all just standing there like,
no. You didn't warn them?
I mean, they were too far away, but like this was when I was a kid, so we're just kind of like, I'm pretty sure that's where the leeches are. And then like 5 minutes later, they're all running out screaming because they had leeches on them.
Oh God. All right, so the removal of the leeches. Plop. All right, great. They're coming off. Poppy is tasked with removing these. Brave girl. I salute her. We just have to remove them carefully so the suckers don't get stuck in your skin. She knows what she's talking about. That could cause a nasty infection. And Damien is completely grossed out. Poor Damien. He says, oh, that's disgusting. I know, but it doesn't hurt, does it? And he says, not really. Well, kudos to him, because I've heard that it hurts like crazy, but all right. What do I know?
You never find out.
Yeah.
Oh God, amen. All right, but that's a shit ton of blood. Yep, seems like they've been feeding for a while. I wonder if she means that they've been feeding off him specifically, or like, if they've just like had their like, how long has he been walking around with these leeches on, man?
Well, he said he did get lost.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't her leech.
Yeah, and here he is, just gushing in blood. Anyway, once they're all off, just clean up the blood and disinfect the bites. You'll be okay. Oh, there she is, being very calm about this whole thing, like she does this all the time, which maybe she did when she was a kid. And we have Tora just observing the whole thing in his boxers.
And his cutesy face. They're so cute, all the faces.
Yeah, I love how Poppy's just like, yeah, here's all the information about leeches, like blah blah blah, and like Tora and Damien are just like, you just see like their respect for her just like going up. Because remember Tora was like, when they like first got there, and he's like, that's where she gets her like hamster balls of steel from. She grew up out here.
Yes, I have a friend over for the holiday, and we were outside, and there was a spider And my other friend totally freaked out. And the friend who was here literally walked over, picked up the spider with her hands and like threw it out. I'm like, where I remember was like, wow, you just the spider with your bare hands. We were very impressed. So yeah.
All right, cool. Where's my cutoff point for this?
Oh,
By
when the
way, I
frog
just-
jumps at Tora's face.
Lovely. All right. Okay, so now Damien, you can see the respect. He's saying, gee, I'm not gonna bleed to death, am I, Miss Poppy? I think it's so cute that he calls her Miss Poppy. It's the cutest thing.
He's got the little like blush marks, like
Respect. That's respect right there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And-
It's obviously trying to portray the contrast between like basically all of Tora's crew, like the thuglets, right? That they call them.
Mhm.
They're presented to be very like cute and like not harmful. Like the other thugs are like bad people, they're like cute people. And like we'll see a little bit later, like I don't know. It's just tough, but like Lily's trying to like humanize them, you know, make us like them.
She succeeds.
I do
She
love,
does
like,
succeed.
we know that they've like been on Aries Street like their whole life. So I just love that Damien's like, oh gee, I'm not gonna bleed to death, am I, Miss Poppy? And I was just like, dude, like, can you try to make the cute little lady fuss over you more?
He loves it. He loves the attention.
Oh, you know, like the thuglets are just eating it up at the party to like talking with Poppy.
Right. Exactly.
Aw.
Which is also, by the way, like, okay, we don't know their family background and how, if they have a mom or a parent. And yeah, it could be that Poppy is also filling a little bit that role for them. Like they see a reliable, affectionate, healthy person. And, you know, maybe they never had that in their life. And that's
Or they just see her as like a really cute pet, almost.
okay.
All right, so Poppy says, not likely, still very cavalier, but we can get you in an emergency clinic in town if you're worried. And Damien says, oh, I'm good, but I've never seen this much blood in my life before. And then we have Tora looking wholly unimpressed.
It's just
Yeah.
like I usually do not laugh out loud when I'm reading things like Cow Cinderella. I usually just look kind of like thing. Like, but this I literally had to set my phone down and laugh because like the expressions are just so good.
Mhm.
And this one of just Tora, I mean, like, really?
He knows what's going on. He sees him, and Damien's just milking this for all he's worth. I think I'm gonna be sick. And Poppy just being sweet. He's like, oh no, hang in there, Damien, you'll be okay. And you can just tell Tora's just like, okay. Like, you think that I made you work out before, just wait. Just, all right. So now he starts to call him out. Never seen this much blood before, Pinky, really? And Pinky knows that he has messed up and he's been caught.
His face. Oh my god.
Another good face.
So flipping cute. I love
Like
the
he
face.
remembers that he's there. The Tora is also there.
He can't just like lie his way through.
Oh boy. And here we go. Here are the money shots down here. We see the thuglets plus Gyu, if I'm seeing this
Yeah.
correctly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And a pile of bodies all getting slapped around. And oh, then we have the glamour shot next. And this is like, I liked Brian before, but this particular like illustration of him, I was like, hello. Like, oh, okay. Okay. I see
He's
you with your
like-
finger gun.
He's Mr. Crazy Eyes. Oh my god. Like the crazy eyes are wow.
I'm
Like,
here for it.
And I
It's-
like this shot was so good. I was like, this feels like the cover to like a heavy metal album.
Yeah. So true. And you have Gyu looking all menacing, which is so off-brand. That's the first time we've
Yeah.
seen him looking that way.
Mhm.
I have been saying for a while, like, you look sweet, but there's no way Tora would have just left him on his own at Poppy's apartment if he couldn't like kick
Yeah.
ass.
That's true.
yeah.
Because he like put that one thuglet in his place like right
Mhm.
away at the party and like did not even like ruffle his shirt.
Yeah, but I was so surprised. I thought Gyu just like did tech for the clan. I didn't think he got his hands dirty. I really did not.
Oh,
yeah.
see, when I saw him like beat that thuglet up at the club, and they're just kind of like, whatever. And he's totally fine. I was like, yeah, I'm sure Tora taught him how to fight.
Yeah, that's cute. Nonchalantly beating people up, taking names. Didn't see it coming.
And with this, did people notice the
Mhm.
emblem that's
Mhm.
on them is a stylized kanji for tiger?
Mhm.
Oh.
Mhm.
So it is the same kanji that's on Tora's back. This is just more of like a typeface font of it.
Mhm.
Like I looked it up and I was like, yeah, that's the same thing.
That's awesome.
That's what got people talking about the potential uprising thing too, because they're like, oh, okay, so we see that their loyalty pretty much is to him. Like that's like
Mhm.
it's Tora's crest that they're wearing, you know, not like the Balthman. Like that's not appearing anywhere. And
Mhm.
And that also reinforces like, well, that some people were saying like he had his own group, but it's both emblematic of like his power in the clan that he had his own group, and also I think of their connection to him, that they belong to him. And I think that may have been like a replacement family for them as well. The fact that they wanted to cling to Tora and like he was their protector. So I think it speaks very well to Tora as being, in a way, a little bit of a father figure to them.
When I find it interesting that all the other like clan symbols or gang symbols that we've seen so far have been tattooed. So like the Rose clan, they've got like the big roses with the Baltham crest. I don't think we've seen what the 9 daggers is yet, but I find it interesting that Tora's guys, as far as we know, don't have that tattooed on them. Like the shot where we see it it's just on their jackets. And part of me thinks Tora wouldn't make anyone
or want them to
take it, because it seems like he didn't really want to get the Baltham brand.
Yeah. I can totally see like all these little thuglets being like, hey, big bro, we should totally get this tattoo, right? And him just backhanding all of them like, absolutely not, doesn't dare.
Here, you could wear this sweater that has it on there if you really have to.
Funny.
But I mean, like, part of that I think too is that, like, I think I've seen it talked about before where like Tora tries to hide the Baltham brand whenever he can. So like he has his hair long, or like when he delivers the painting to Mr. Lam and he pulls his hood off, like he specifically leaves the hood a little higher on that side of his neck to cover it up. And like, just he knows wherever he goes, like people look at that first. And I think he wouldn't want that for like his guys. Like Tora can never escape from being connected to the Balthmans. And it seems like he would care enough about his own guys to not want them like kind of forever marked.
Right. Yeah. And that also just again shows us how Tora doesn't want this life and is the opposite of how he was raised.
All right, yeah, so we have this badass shot of them, and then going down, we see a zoom in on Damien's face, and he's looking absolutely psychotic with his mouth like going forever, like well past his eyes, and covered in blood and looking like he's enjoying every minute of it.
Yeah, vampire. I got vampire vibes here with the little blood and like flicking through or something. And a lot of people found this very sexy. I don't know. Did you? I did not, but I never found Damien sexy, period. But did you?
Really?
Oh, I thought this was a pretty sexy shot, like with the lighting and like
the lighting is pretty good, yeah.
The very intense eyes. I mean, in real life, would I find a man covered in blood looking kind of crazy sexy? No.
It's odd though. Some people do. It's so weird. Like I was like, hey, we were just talking about this. Like those ladies that write to prisoners on death row, like the serial killers.
Yeah.
It's a thing, all right? People are into it.
No, I know it is. But I'm like, yeah, this is a sexy panel, but like not in real life, just for the comic.
Yeah, I've always found Damien to be presented like a child, so I was never into him. But whatever. Everyone has
Well,
I've always
I
thought he's
think-
good looking, but with this particular panel, if I like put my finger over like where his mouth is so I can't see it anymore, then I think he's good looking, but the mouth is like a little too much for me. It's a little like, okay.
He's definitely good looking, but he just seems like an immature child to me, but whatever.
But I think that Thuglets probably have like two modes, is like derp mode where they just run their mouths, and then apparently like badass kick everybody's asses mode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very endearing. I stand for both of them. You gotta love men with many facets. Gotta love it.
It's a nice way of putting it. Okay.
Varied interests, even. Let's put it that way.
Layered, complex.
I love how we go from like Damien looking like kind of psychotic and menacing back to now with like a frog on his head.
Yeah.
There you go, Elizabeth, your turn.
Now we're back to the other side, the derp side.
The derp side. So he's just like,
Yeah.
maybe just a couple times. And then the frog climbs up his head. He just doesn't even seem to notice that there's a frog on him.
No, he's more like upset with the fact that he just got called out by Tora.
And then the little frog has like a little crown and blushes and little hearts and is like, ribbit, looking at Tora.
Oh God. Wow.
And I died. Because, and then the frog just leaps straight towards Tora's face, and you just see his soul leaving his body.
And this
With
is
the little
thing-
hearts.
With the little hearts, and Frog's just like, ah, right in his face. And Poppy just does not even notice. She's like, do you need help with the bandages? I'm not too good with them, though. And Damien is like, no problem, Miss Poppy. Big Bro can do that. He used to patch us up when we got into fights all the time. And so, like, and then Tora's just gone from behind Poppy. Like, she is just completely oblivious, and she and Damien are just talking, and we don't know where Tora is at this moment. But I just like how it's like he is literally like right behind her, and then he's just gone.
I thought he fainted at first when I first saw it, like that he was gone.
She's
So
like,
it's
oh,
always-
wow, that's very nice of him. Damien says, yeah, he's a hero to all his little bros. Oh, wow. He's real mean at times, but he takes real good care of his men. When he was still active on the streets, everyone wanted to follow him, but he only took in the few of us, me, you, Brian. And then Poppy just says, oh, wow, again. And I'm like, I think she's just trying to get him to talk here about Tora, because she literally says, oh, wow, 3 times. Actually, four times. That's all she says. And then Damien just keeps going. And we get this moment of Tora with a very young Damien. Tora's like, how many of them? Damien's like, 5, and they're all bigger than me. Well, where was Brian? Brian had remedial classes.
Of
You were
course.
alone? Then you should have run away, stupid. Damien's like, Big Bro, Tora's men never run away. And I love that, like, Damien's got to be like 12, 13 or something here. Like, it's just like a little schoolboy is like, yeah, we're your men. And Tora's just like, okay.
Sitting there smoking, stoic
Yeah.
face, his little downturned mouth.
Like,
So full of
checking-
cute dyed
checking-
hair.
Checking Damien's arm.
Oh my God.
Damien's like, our Big Bro's the biggest, baddest, and strongest at Aries Street. And then Poppy again says, oh, wow. And she turns and looks at Tora doing like the flaily get the frog off me dance in his smiley face boxers.
So cute. But that before we continue, like that flashback just shows us again what a kind heart Tora had. You know, he pretends he's all tough and he has this maybe like stoic exterior, but he's taking care of Brian and he's talking to him and asking him, and you know, he's like, he really is like a fatherly figure for them, which is impressive considering he never had a father figure himself. So
Mhm.
it's just, we keep getting like glimpses into what a good person Tora is. And, you know, he's exceptionally good, and not just given his upbringing, but I think he's a better person than most average people would be, even
Mhm.
without the mafia stuff to hold him back. So I mean,
On the fact that like Damien is like, everyone wanted to follow him, but he only took in the few of us. So like we saw when like Damien and Brian and like a whole group like beat up Giyu and made them take him to him, but like it seems like out of that whole crowd, like Tora only took a few of them.
I think he has like a criteria, you know, like I think he probably looks for people like him who have nothing else, you know, like who their only other option is like that's the closest thing that they'll ever have to a real bond, you know, kind of taking them under his wing, so to speak. And also, like, tiny little side note, insignificant thing, I love that Lily Dusk shows the passage of time for Tora by his tattoos, like, and like the length of his hair, like seeing them just like as half sleeves, and then like later on, I love it. Tiny little detail.
Instead of having to be like XX number of years ago, you're just like, oh yeah, that's Tora when he was a teenager.
Yeah, and
That
maybe
is cool.
Yep. Maybe also back to Tora choosing his people. He might have only chosen people who had good in them. Like he might not have allowed people who were like actually cruel. I mean, it's hard to say that them beating people up. It's hard to see it. I mean, we don't know who they beat up and why they beat them up and what they did before, but like, it's not great. But I'm gonna kind of assume that anyone who Tora chose to be close to him has redemptability. Like they do have a good soul.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that like even how he's talking to Damien here, instead of being like when we see kid Tora with Vincent and Vincent's like, oh, are you scared? Why are you crying then? Like, I don't have any use for like weak children. But here, like Damien's all beat up and Tora's like not giving him a hard time about getting beat up. Like he's clearly like checking his arm. And he's just like, well, then you should have just run away.
Right.
Like, you know, if you were by yourself and there were 5 of them and they were bigger than you, like you should have just run away. And then Damien's one was like, we don't run away. But like the fact that like Tora's focus wasn't on like, oh, you need to prove yourself or something. Like it's like you should be like be safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and then like the fact that Damon's like, our big bro is the biggest, baddest, and strongest on Aries Street. And I think like Poppy is probably like, she literally only says, oh wow, like while Damien's talking. I think she's just kind of trying to like put that together with like Tora now. Where it's like, you know, it's really funny. And the like he's like flailing around in the background, but the fact that like he's supposed to be this like really dangerous, lauded like figure in the criminal underworld, but then he's also like in her house in his smiley face boxers.
Yeah, domestic Tora, gotta love it.
And I love that Damien's just like, again, it's like, big bro, help me. I can do my bandages. But she's just kind of standing there like watching, and you're like, you could just sort of see like she's just trying to like process all this information. And then she's like, oh yeah, Tora said we're staying put after all, which means we're really spending the night together.
So, okay, so I will say I was a little disappointed in what happened afterwards, but this does make me realize why Tora decided what he decided, because she does seem a bit anxious about the thought of spending the night with him. And that
I don't know. I think that this panel actually is the start of a turning point, like where like we can see that maybe like after just kind of processing for a second, like she might be kind of into it, you know, like I don't know, like for me it feels like a little bit of a turning point where her some of her anxieties might be turning into excitement a little bit, but maybe that's just me totally fetishizing like, you know, like her kind of look, but I don't know, that's just me. Like I just felt like it was
well, and the fact that I think like she invited him to stay with her, and then when she was like, oh, Damien can stay in my grandma's room, doesn't seem like there's another bedroom, so like it seems like she was once she said, yeah, Damien can stay here, like she was kind of like, yeah, and I'll let Tora stay in my room. But like probably feeling awkward and not knowing how to bring it up. And then like Damien was just telling her like, yeah, Tora can be rough around the edges, but like he takes care of the people that he cares about. And she's probably watching Tora right there, like, okay, come on, like flips the frog off or whatever and starts like patching Damien up.
Yeah, the next part is hilarious. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite songs, by the way. Not because I actually hate the whole thing with Snow White, where he literally sees her for 5 seconds and he's like, just talk to her. They don't talk. And the prince is like, oh, I'm gonna marry you. Like, I hate it so much, but I do love the song.
Yeah, I didn't really think into it that much when I was a kid. I accepted it at face value. Like when he was like, oh, I love her, I'm gonna marry her. I'm like, okay. just accepted it. Like, okay, like, absolutely, totally get it.
But I love that like Damien's in the bathroom now, just like splashing around and like singing super loud.
I think that's adorable. And like honestly, this like totally warms me to him even more. Like it's
That's the song he chooses to sing.
hey, he's a Disney fan. I think this is absolutely adorable. And honestly, it makes me like, I know that like for a lot of people, this is like one of those things where it's like, oh, he's like a cute younger brother. And for me, like finding out he's like also like a Disney fan and probably like a closet romantic, clearly, you know, because of like the whole thing with like Erdine, he was like interested in her right away. And like now he's singing Disney love ballads for me. I was like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Woo! Just
But I didn't even know what it was from at first until I saw the comments. But I just thought that he's like, one day my prince will come.
Can I sing it? I love this song.
I don't even know the melody.
It goes, one day my prince will come. Anyway, I'll sing each line as we get to it. If I remember.
Perfect.
And then it says, after making food for Damien and Tora, again,
Hungry guys.
she's thinking, but is my bed too small for the both of us? Shoot, maybe he'd prefer sleeping on the floor, but I don't have any more spare sheets.
Now, the only one for me, I'm trying to remember, I think is the only one for me. I don't know. I don't remember what.
I think she switched around some of the lyrics.
Yeah,
like,
it's
to
on the right
avoid
words.
like a copyright thing.
But also, like, I think she's picking lyrics
based on what's
for
happening.
these panels.
Yeah.
Because, like, Poppy here isn't thinking about, like, do I want to share my bed with Tora? It's more just like, oh, is it too small? Is he going to be comfortable? Like, you know, but I don't have any more spare sheets for him. And so, like, I love that she's obviously comfortable enough with the idea of him spending the night, but now she's kind of thinking about, like, you know, I'm okay with this, but is he comfortable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, and the fact that she even thinks to herself, like, you know, when she was at his apartment when he was sick, and the fact that he was sleeping on the floor, like, she's like, well, maybe that's just where he's more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Right. I love that she doesn't judge him. Like a lot of people would think it's weird that he's sleeping on the floor and that there's something wrong with him, but she is not trying to fix him. And I think that she knows, Quincy told her that he feels safer on the floor. So she knows that it's coming from his trauma. But a lot of people, when they encounter their partner and their partner has an issue, like a psychological issue, they want to fix it. And understandably so. Like I did that with my husband. And I was like, oh, I have to fix him. And she got to the point where it took me years to accept, which is like, you have to accept somebody as they are. And I'm very impressed that she's able to accept his trauma. And yes, obviously it is something that should be fixed. Like we should try to fix our traumas, but she's able to accept, okay, this is who he is. And he has his traumas and I'm not going to try to fix it right away. I'm very impressed with that.
Well, and I love that, you know, on the left side of the panel, we're getting her thinking about like, is he going to be comfortable? Is, you know, will this be restful for him kind of thing? And then we have Damien singing The Only One for Me.
I like, when I think of him singing, I literally think of like that like 5-second video of like that seagull that's like leaning all the way back, like just belting like, just...
But he does seem to be getting louder.
I just picture squawking. Just like for some reason in my head, he can't sing.
And then, yeah, so like, I love that. I'm just like her thinking about wanting him to be comfortable in her home because now she's comfortable with him. Like, she's comfortable enough to wear what she wants. She's comfortable enough to put his shirt on. And like, she seems like she's not thinking like, does he want to share a bed with me? Or like, you know, do I want this? It's like, is he going to be comfortable?
Yeah, it's like two sides. Like the overall thing, like the big picture stuff for her seems very natural. It's only like the little stuff, like the little details here and there that she seems to be like kind of overthinking a little bit. You know, like, oh, maybe this, maybe this. But the overall concept of like spending the night with him and staying together in the same bed, she's not even like, she's just glossing over it. Like, yeah, that's happening. Okay.
I don't know. I actually interpret all her little worries as being her way of being anxious about the big thing without expressing it to herself. But I see both. I can see both interpretations. So yeah.
Well, and then he comes up and says, hey, I cleared up the stuff outside. And then we have Damien saying nobody like him. And Poppy gets a little badump. Thank you. And then she says, I'll ask him. Tora, would you prefer? And then she gets cut off by Damien just belting out.
And I realized I don't actually know the song as well as I thought I did because I
no, those aren't lyrics to the song. That's
Okay,
made up.
Was he strong and handsome, big and tall? And I just love that, like,
yeah,
he's just like,
he is.
Oh, I know where
out.
this is from. He's singing the dialogue of the Seven Dwarves. Like they were asking questions about the prince in the movie.
Okay.
And okay, I get it now.
So he's essentially doing a impromptu medley of Snow White. Like the little badump to me, like it doesn't seem like she's nervous. Maybe like, you know, she's getting a little blush because he's touching her, and then she's going to ask him what he wants, which, like, she doesn't get to finish. But the fact that, like, that's what she's going to ask him first, like, what do you want?
Yeah, I think she's butt dumping because Mr. Strong, Sexy, Big, and Handsome is right behind her.
That's excitement right there. Like her personal space is getting invaded, and she is into it.
Yeah, these passages are so well done. Like I mean, I get like turned on by this. This is like, oh, like, yo, hubby, like goes my husband, I'm like, come here, you know. I need my big, strong, handsome guy now. You know?
So when I was reading this, like usually my husband's downstairs at his computer and my computer, and I hang out in the living room. But sometimes he'll like pop in, and especially if I'm like rereading the comic. But with this one, he came upstairs and he was like, and I'm like laughing and smiling and like giggling, and he's like, oh, I take it was a good episode tonight. Because like Fridays, he knows that like right before 8, I'll post my analysis for the free episode. And then it's like 2-ish hours, hour and a half. I'm just like freaking out on Instagram and Discord and rereading the comic at least twice. But he'll come up and I'm just like sitting there with this big smile on my face.
Yeah, it's great. I have said numerous times that Poppyland has done wonders for my sex life. So, yep. The latest Secret Garden that came out on Patreon, so it came out right before the holiday started, and I was like, I'm saving it. I'm not looking at it now. I need to use this for like when it can actually be useful. But I had like 5 minutes. I was like, I'm saving it.
Well, and speaking of getting turned on, Poppy gets even more red. And he's like, prefer to what? And she's just like,
yeah, I'd probably short circuit too if I got my neck kissed like that.
Yes. Yeah, Jen, this is where you take over.
Oh, sorry. Gotcha. Yeah. So he pretty much says, anyway, I'll bunk with Pinky tonight. So he kind of just, I guess, yeah, kind of surprised that he does that, but maybe, like you said, maybe he thinks that she's nervous and he's just trying to make it easy on her.
Yeah, he's being considerate. Damn him.
I know.
I was like, no.
No.
You cockblocked yourself.
We were so close. And then Damien screams singing, did he steal a kiss? He's so romantic, you can't resist.
He stole a kiss. Yes, he did.
Anybody know where that line's from?
Still dialogue. I can't believe I know this. I'm not even
Oh,
hesitating
that's Snow
either.
White dialogue.
Yeah,
okay.
still.
Okay. And then she says, with Damien. Okay. And she's like, sounds cool. So she seems kind of like unsure of that.
But I love that panel though, like the change in like, sorry, this is like my artsy part coming out, but like the perspective, like at first he's like all up in her space, like very close, but then after he says that, the new perspective of the shot, he suddenly looks very far away, you know, like she looks a lot smaller, a lot further, and like the distance between them seems to have grown a little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, obviously,
I was
emblematic
nerding
of-
out.
Yeah, right. It's a visual representation of what he's just said, that they're not going to be together. And I think she's like ambivalent. I think that.
Oh, see, I read it as disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
I
fact
think
that we
so.
don't see her face for like 2 panels and she doesn't turn and look at him, she's just kind of like, okay. And
Just as well. I mean, for us mere mortals, like my face would be terrible. I'd be like, it would take me a minute.
Listen, I think I was disappointed personally, but then like thinking back at it, I think that Poppy, if she really would have wanted Tora to sleep with her, she could have told him. So I think she was not ready. What do you think?
I don't know. I read it as disappointment just because like she doesn't move and she doesn't like look at him. Like she just sort of stands there and just kind of like, okay.
I think you're both right. I think you're both right. Like I think it's a very big possibility that she isn't ready, but she wants to be, you know, and yeah, like, you know, like I feel like she was kind of hyping herself up to take this really big step, and then the choice kind of was made for her. And so I think there's like a little bit of deflating happening, you know,
that's what I was kind of thinking, deflating.
Yeah. And I think she's just like, okay, I guess that's cool. And, you know, I think it's a bit of both.
That's good.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, it's very relatable. I totally, yeah. You know, life is never super one thing or the other. It's always a mix, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's very relatable for someone like, you know, if their first time and they want it, but they don't want it, they're nervous.
Yeah, like I totally agree that she definitely could have said something, but I think that's the part where like, yeah, she's not ready enough where she does say something. And also, as well, in defense of everybody in this comic, I would not want my first time with that tall, dark man to be with Damien in the next room and singing this song.
Agreed.
I'm just saying,
Totally.
if we're picking like time, place, like circumstance, this isn't it.
Yes, I'm with you. And you know, it's funny because I think if they would have slept together, I don't think they would have actually slept together. I think they would have just slept in the same bed.
Yeah,
I don't think they would have had sex. But I hear.
But like, yeah, I think maybe even Tora doesn't want that. He could be like, well, if I'm going to spend the night with her, like I want it to actually like not be thinking about the fact, yeah, like Damien's right there, and maybe feeling more inhibited.
Yeah.
No, it is interesting that when he says wedding bells will ring, he's clearly now singing out of tune.
Yep.
This part I do know. Wedding bells will ring.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Except for like that scary high pitch that Snow White can get to, that like the
Right. She
my
does
ears
like,
always
"Wedding
pop
bells will ring."
like all the way up. Just like I can like feel my eardrums just got just
But like Damien's apparently trying and failing to hit that.
props, man, props.
Just love that they're having this conversation like over this just shriek screaming. Like
Scream singing.
yeah, shrieks singing.
Warbling.
And he just says, we'll see you in the morning. And then he keeps singing one day, choke. And then he says, Tora says, oi, Pinky. And Pinky starts coughing. And he said, "Shut the hell up, you sound like a dying rooster." And then he says, "At least I'm not completely tone deaf like you, big bro." And he said, "Yeah, get over here, you little," which is interesting because I feel like it's not often that they like trash talk him. Like I feel like they're usually afraid to. So I thought that was kind of cute that he actually is kind of giving it back to Tora.
Being like the obstinate little brother.
I feel like normally they're very like serious with him.
Kind of deferential.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first time we're seeing them not in public either.
That's
True.
what I was gonna say too.
True.
Yeah. It's like off the clock. Like Damien definitely strikes me as like the needy type. Like, and I think he's almost like excited, like going in before all this, like being like, yeah, big bro, like take care of me, like help me. And you know, because like he's not particularly distraught at that point, but he kind of seems almost excited to be like taken care of by someone he idolizes, you know, the way you kind of might idolize an older sibling. And
Yeah.
And this definitely feels like a sibling where he's like, "You sound like a dying rooster." Well, at least I'm not tone deaf.
and the roughhousing commences.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So
Poppy's
then we
still, like standing there.
Yeah, Bobby's just still standing there.
Still bummed.
Yeah, I take it as disappointment, I think.
Mm.
So then we see her going into her bedroom and she says, "Ugh, I'm so exhausted." And she thinks about her mom again, that clip back to her when she left. And she said, "I haven't thought about my mom leaving in a long time. I remember being butthurt for years, but I didn't feel much emotion from that memory." Kind of like when Tora talks about his parents, or maybe I'm just completely wiped and maybe a little out, or maybe a little numbed out.
Yeah, that I wonder, right? Like, because when you have something very bad happen to you, like if you're numb, it's two things. If you have no emotion, it's two things. Either you've completely healed or you're repressing. So which do you think it is?
I think that she's repressing big time
Yeah.
because I was kind of surprised that she like referred to it as feeling butthurt. Like I was just like, that's a very cavalier, like nonchalant way to talk about what is a very traumatic event for a lot of kids. You know?
Yeah, your mom abandoning you.
Yeah, like I was like, are we like minimizing this a little too much? And yeah, that kind of took me by surprise.
Well, and the fact that like with like crises, like my family's been through a lot and like we've dealt with a lot of like medical things, like long-term stuff, and it's just like you can go for a certain amount of time and be really functional and like keep it together, but there comes a point where like all of that stuff catches up with you. And I think like Poppy's just had like 3 very emotional, like intense weeks. Like their birthday party was 2 days ago. The day before, like 24 hours previous, she was like running through Aries Street practically for her life. And now she's like in Moonbright. And I'm like, I can't even imagine like the emotional whiplash. Because like she confronted Jory. Tora shows up from her end completely out of the blue, like hours away from where she thought he was. And she wasn't expecting him to be there. And then like her mom comes up and like her dad comes up and like her grandma is fine, but was like manipulating her. And then Tora's going to spend the night, but then they're not going to sleep in the same bed. And it's just like, I can only imagine like, she just like, brain is just like, nope, too much. We're done.
Yeah. But, you know, Poppy, like we've discussed, like a lot of people always say, oh, Poppy's so cutesy, but really Poppy is very strong. And like, she's been through a lot. And I totally agree, Kat, that like, you know, her saying butthurt is not the right word for something like that. And it also could just show us a frame into her mind where she minimized her own experience. And she never wanted to admit how devastating it was, because then she would have to admit how devastating it was and go through all that grieving. And, you know, it's easier to say, oh, it wasn't a big deal, or to try to convince herself that it wasn't.
Well, it seems like she doesn't have much of a emotional vocabulary either, where like my observation is anytime she feels a strong emotion and expresses it to somebody, she immediately apologizes for it and makes it sound like worse than it actually was.
Mhm.
So like she apologizes for like dumping on her dean. And then she like apologizes to her grandma for yelling. And it was like, you were literally just standing up for yourself, like pretty calmly in my mind. But it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I was yelling. And like Tora is the only person we've seen her actually like fully release on in any way where like she doesn't hold back her like when he encourages her to like, okay, you're angry, be angry, like just let it out. And it seems like she has literally never been encouraged to do that before. And so like maybe she just doesn't have like the vocabulary for like deeper emotions because she never felt like she could.
Mhm. I feel like she was never validated. Her grandma, like, no offense, I feel like her grandma is very manipulative. I'm a little about her. And like, you know, maybe her grandma doesn't have emotional skills for some reason, because it does seem that she wants to be a good grandma. But I think that, yeah, Poppy's dad probably died too early for her. And I don't, you know, he seemed to be emotionally there for her. But her mom, the fact that when her mom left, she was like, oh, mom, don't worry, I'll be good. Like, that to me showed that maybe the mom was like very, very not emotionally supportive, to say the least. And that she learned from that interaction to blame herself and not take her feelings seriously and think that she was always in the wrong. And which is why would explain why she gravitated towards someone like Jewelry, because maybe her mom acted like that. And that was like her way of trying to, you know, get her mom back in a way, to be with someone who was emotionally like her mom, you know?
Well, I mean, I can sort of actually speak from experience on this one. Like when you have a parent that like you center your entire life over gaining their approval, anything that might like offset that approval in any way, like whether it's like an emotional thing or like something like getting grades in school or whatever, like after you spend all that time trying to get that approval, you start to seek it from other people too, like in all of your relationships. And you start to become more attracted to the people that are less willing to give it, you know, and you fixate on that and it's all you think about. So yeah, you do end up to like attracting very toxic relationships because it's what you're used to, you know, you're used to being the one that's constantly chasing and trying to get that approval.
And it's normal. Even if it's not healthy, it's
Right.
what you know.
Yeah.
I had this theory with Quincy that that's why he's into Cordy. Like Cordy treats him very coldly. And I always felt like maybe Quincy is trying to get what he, you know, also duplicate that from his parents, like Vincent being all cold and unemotional and unavailable, and him trying to like desperately seeking someone like Vincent, but who will actually give it to him, but who isn't.
Yeah. So let's see. Poppy's still laying on the bed thinking about things, and she says, am I really a commitment phobe? It's not like there's a bunch of men asking for my hand and I'm running from them, but I guess there is a grain of truth in there. And then she says, it's just that this craving and discontent and all these feelings that start popping up when you get attached to someone, it feels like they're like the deeper I get, the more I spiral out of control. So
amen, sister. That's part of being in a relationship. It's messy.
I feel like this is someone who never got securely attached.
Yeah.
Ugh,
She's afraid.
Yeah, but that's the
from her
thing. Like,
mom.
I don't think that makes her a commitment phobe, you know? Like, I think there's a difference between like being like a commitment phobe and just being a little afraid, you know, after you've been hurt, like justifiably so. Like, it's totally fine to be hesitant and to be like, I need a minute to like make sure I know myself really well before like, you know, forking myself over to someone else who might turn out to be just as manipulative as the last person I was with. You know, like I'm going through that exact situation with like one of my girlfriends right now. She's been asking me for advice about this guy who's so much like Jewelry, it's disgusting, but like same thing, like making her question who she is, you know, because she spent all this time trying to get his approval and he keeps on dangling it in front of her. And so now that she's like kind of cut things off with him, like she asked me, she was like I don't want to be alone, I want to start dating again. And I was like, that's like, it makes sense. But like, you know, the past two relationships that she's been in, she got manipulated like crazy by both of these guys. And like, I was like, maybe now's the time to, you know, have confidence in yourself, date yourself for a little bit, you know, and
Mhm.
like, so that if you come across someone like this again, you're gonna know who you are, and that there's nothing wrong with you. You don't have to change yourself for someone else. And, you know, like, she had a really hard time accepting that, like, you know, and I just feel like, you know, Poppy's hesitation here might be stemming from kind of the same thing, where she's just getting out of this relationship and she's like trying to figure out, like, okay, if this happens again, you know, like, she's kind of preparing herself, you know, for the worst. And like, I think that would make her pause for anybody. Not, it's not like a just a Tora thing, but it's like an anybody thing.
And she's really not a commitment phobe because she stayed with Jory
No.
for over 5 years.
Yeah. No, I
At
definitely
least
think that's
5
not
years.
fair. Like, she's not. She's not. She's just been through a lot, and she's just
Mhm.
hesitant for a very valid reason.
Yeah.
And they've only been broken up like a few weeks, right?
Yeah. It's 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since the start of the comic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But this is the first time that we're seeing her actually like take time to sort through this stuff.
Mhm. That's
Actually
true.
think about it.
Because she had talked to her dean at the beginning of the story, and she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go home and journal tonight." And then that ended up being the night she and Tora met up at Ellis's. And like, so it's like, it doesn't seem like she's really had the time or given herself the time and quiet to like really think through this.
Mhm.
mhm.
And she seems, and like she was saying that before they went into the club, like she's used to running away from herself.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so like running away from negative feelings, negative thoughts, not wanting to face herself or what she's dealing with. And so it seems like now she is
Yeah.
stopping. And
Right. I think it's very good that she's actually contemplating it.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm not surprised at her reaction at all, because, you know, her whole experience throughout her childhood has been people not being there for her. Her mom leaving her dad leaving her granny, not so sure how reliable, maybe emotionally not like there for her. And it's not surprising that given all those, and jewelry, obviously, not surprising that given all that, she had a very hard time trusting people.
Mhm.
And yeah, I do think it's great that she's finally thinking about it, because she needs to.
and like she seems like somebody, she wants control because it feels safe, you know, and being able to run away, she's still in control.
Mhm.
So like
Yeah.
when they're on Aries Street, like she's like, oh my, like, you know, the cab came and she was gone. Like she ran because she got flustered. And I remember being so annoyed because I was like, you were just thinking about not running away anymore. But here, like, she isn't running away from those emotions, and she's like turning them over and kind of made like, you know, is there a grain of truth there? Like, oh, well, this, you know, these are the feelings that I'm feeling, and like it feels like it's out of control, and I like control, you know, and feeling safe, and, you know, probably not feeling emotionally safe with people to be herself.
Right. And then if you basically, the fear is that if you get attached to someone, they're just going to leave her like everyone else left her.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a lot to work through. And I give so much credit to Lily for putting such mature themes, you know. Before I started reading comics, before I came across webtoons, when I first saw the ads for this on Facebook, I was like, I don't read comics. I'm not going to click on this ad. This is for comics are for babies. I read sophisticated books. And then I started reading it and I fell in love. And I have reformed for my sins, because I was like, the graphic comics are just a medium, and the story can be as shallow and as deep as the author makes it. And like, this is, you know, especially like the more we discuss it, it's like, wow, like the more it's so realistic and it hits on so many issues that people deal with in their life. And I'm just so impressed.
Thank you for validating my existence from middle school up until now. That's
Yeah, I've been a comic nerd my whole life, so I'm
right?
like, yeah, comics have a lot in there.
They do.
But I like with this episode in particular, like I've never laughed harder at an MPL episode before, but also like she balanced it so well because we had it kind of bookended with, you know, Tora's conversation with Giyu, and we get some more information about like Quincy and Cordy and like, you know, just some more questions there. And now we're kind of ending with Poppy now, really stopping and talking to herself and asking questions. But like just the way that Lily Dusk manages to balance, like, you know, she could have just made this just a completely comedic episode and made it really goofy and like, you know, but the fact that the humor hits right because like there's all these other things going on, and it doesn't feel out of place. Like we kind of they sort of needed that breather and we needed that breather after like so much intensity, and so it's like we got to laugh and like enjoy the leeches and the frogs and like Damien's antics, but like now it's like, you know, Poppy's kind of coming back now and like settling down and being like, okay, like I feel like I have the space to process this more. Tora, not so much.
Yes, it's meanwhile in Granny's bedroom. The frogs are peeping in.
They've heard tell.
Yeah, they've heard of the frog prince. There's something flying around the bedroom, which looks like a fly or a dragonfly or something. Oh my God, it's amazing. And then you see Tora and Binky cowering in the corner, and then a zoom in on their face of them both just looking miserable. So
Damien's like cuddling with him. And like
Tora gave Damien the sheet.
protection.
And then you see Poppy again looking very flushed. So I'm curious what's going on there.
Well, I think he's flashing back to when he was like with her on the bed.
Oh, gotcha.
And
You're
thinking
right. You're right.
I could have been there and
Yeah.
here.
At his little blush.
No, you're right. That's totally what's happening there. So yeah, I'm curious. I saw somebody saying like, oh, I hope he ends up going in there. So I'm curious to see what she does in the next scene. I don't know.
I just love the big bad thugs. Like we have established now that like Damien can be a badass. Tora's like the biggest badass ever on Aries Street, and they're just like huddling in the corner,
Cowering from a dragonfly.
Yeah, like a moth or something, and some frogs in the windowsill. And they're just like, it's so
Do
great.
you think they'll end up running to Poppy's room and be like, rescue us, Miss Poppy? And then
if only.
Or maybe they're like flailing and she gets up to see and it's just like, oh my gosh, guys, and like just takes it. I've done that before for people.
Yes.
Nah, I think it's gonna fast forward to the next morning. And it's like I think that's probably the most we're gonna get out of this evening, which has been a pretty jam-packed evening, to be fair.
It's been a long evening.
If that happens, they will totally show up like completely tired because they did not get any sleep.
Yep, 100%. They're gonna have like bags under their eyes, just like that, like looking totally unamused. Like that was not
like,
cool.
Oh no, is Granny's bedroom not comfortable? They're just
like, you're trying to kill us, lady. You and the flies.
I have to say, I have to laugh at the fact that like in the Discord that Kat and I are in, like frogs came up like over a month ago as like this joke. Like it had nothing to do with the comic really. It was just frogs are this like running joke. And then all of a sudden they started showing up in the comic and we're like, oh, that's funny. Like he's counting the frogs. And then with this, like more frogs are showing up.
A frog fan base. Like it was funny. We were like talking on Discord, like she knows.
How does she know about the frogs? And apparently, like from her comments I've seen on like Instagram and stuff, like she just seems to just really be enjoying the fact that like all of us just think the frogs are hilarious.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the frog first showed up in the analogy with the frog in the pot, and I think that.
Oh,
she
that's right.
decided
That's
to
right.
bring it in as the comedic stuff, right? Because Papa's like, we are the frog. I think she just decided to put it back in.
Well, I, for one, am greatly enjoying it. I just, that panel of the frog just leaping towards Tora's face as he just like, you wonder how fast he ran away. Like, somebody needs to make, like, there's somebody who's made some like NPL GIFs that I've seen, and like, you know, one of them is just Poppy like smiling, but I really need somebody to make a GIF of Tora just like flailing.
That would be great.
So if anybody's listening who knows how to do that, please do that.
Yeah, I used to remember who it was, and I forgot their name right now, but I want to give them crap. I totally forgot who it was. Whatever. Someone can comment, because it was somebody that I should remember the name. I forgot. Anywho. Well, yeah. So
It's such a good episode.
It was like you said, it was funny and serious and just had everything in it.
It really did.
Romantic, sexy, everything. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was a lovely discussion. As always, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your fantastic insights. It was so good hearing all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yes. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.